Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Call. Gabriel Becker adjusted the single light bulb hanging over the metal table, its harsh glare casting sharp shadows across the face of the man zip-tied to the chair. Viktor Kozlov, arms dealer and human trafficker, had been silent for 6 hours. Gabriel was patient. 15 years in military intelligence and 8 more in private contracting had taught him that everyone eventually broke. Your network spans 14 countries, Gabriel said quietly, placing photographs on the table. We know about the shipments through Montenegro. We know about your contact in the State Department. He leaned forward. What we don't know is when the next transfer happens. Victor's eye twitched. Gabriel smiled slightly, the first crack in the armor. The secure phone buzzed against Gabriel's chest. He ignored it. Victor noticed the sound, and Gabriel saw hope flicker in the man's eyes. Gabriel never answered during interrogations. The protocol was absolute. The phone buzzed again. Then again. Gabriel's handler, Walter Knight, appeared in the doorway. Walter's face was grim, which meant something was seriously wrong. In their 12-year partnership, Walter had never interrupted an interrogation. Gabriel, Walter said, his voice carefully controlled. You need to take this. Gabriel studied Walter's expression. The older man's jaw was tight, his normally steady hands clenched into fists. Gabriel stepped away from Victor and took the phone. Becker. Mr. Becker? This is Principal Martinez at Riverside Middle School. Your son Sam has been injured. He's being taken to St. Mary's Hospital right now. The words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. His training kicked in, assess, prioritize, act. How badly injured? A broken arm and what appear to be cracked ribs. Mr. Becker, I need to tell you, this wasn't an accident. Gabriel's blood turned to ice. Behind him, Victor chuckled softly, sensing weakness. Gabriel's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, then stopped. He forced his breathing to remain steady. Explain. Another student's father was here for a parent conference. There was some kind of altercation between the boys and... Mr. Becker, the man held your son down. He said, the principal's voice cracked. He said this is what happens when poor kids don't know their place. The world went silent except for the sound of Gabriel's heartbeat. 13-year-old Sam, who read 3 books a week and helped elderly Mrs. Chun with her groceries every Sunday. Sam, who'd never hurt anyone in his life, was lying in a hospital bed because some rich bastard thought poverty was a crime worth punishing. Walter took the phone. This is Walter Knight. We're sending a medical team to the hospital. Gabriel will be there in 20 minutes. He paused, listening. No, ma'am, don't worry about anything. We'll handle this. Gabriel looked at Victor, who was now smirking openly. The arms dealer had understood enough English to grasp the situation. Family troubles, American? Victor said in his thick accent. Perhaps you should go home, change diapers. Gabriel's fist connected with Victor's jaw before the man could react. The chair toppled backward, Victor's head striking the concrete floor with a sickening crack. Blood pooled beneath the unconscious form. The target can wait, Walter said, already moving. The jet's fueled. Go. Gabriel was already grabbing his jacket. Find out everything about whoever did this to my son. Already on it, Walter replied. Gabriel. Gabriel stopped at the doorway, his green eyes cold as winter steel. Make them pay, Walter said simply. Chapter 2. Lines drawn. St. Mary's Hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. Gabriel's wife Kelly was in the waiting room when he arrived, her face streaked with tears, but her posture rigid with controlled fury. 12 years of marriage to a man in Gabriel's line of work had taught her to process trauma quickly and focus on what mattered. They're still running tests, she said without preamble. Broken radius, 2 cracked ribs on the left side. Could have punctured a lung. Her voice was steady, but Gabriel could see the violence in her dark eyes. I want to kill him. Get in line, Gabriel said, pulling her close. Where's Sam? Room 314. The doctor says he's stable, but Gabriel, she gripped his arms. He keeps asking if he did something wrong. A 13-year-old boy thinks he deserved this. Gabriel's jaw worked silently. Tell me exactly what happened. Before Kelly could answer, voices echoed from the hallway. Gabriel recognized the tone, entitled, demanding, used to getting what it wanted. He moved to the doorway and saw a tall man in an expensive suit berating a nurse. Don't care about your hospital policy. My son Milton was defending himself. If that little thug's parents want to press charges, they can try, but they'll find themselves very disappointed. The man was Gregory Darling, according to the hospital bracelet on his wrist. Late 40s, silver hair, manicure nails, and the kind of confidence that came from never facing real consequences. Behind him stood a boy around Sam's age, Milton Darling, sporting a small bandage on his knuckles and a smug expression that mirrored his father's. Gabriel stepped into the hallway. You must be the Darlings. Gregory turned, sizing up Gabriel with the quick assessment of a predator recognizing another predator. And you're the boy's father, I assume. I think we need to have a conversation about your son's behavior. Oh, we're definitely going to have a conversation, Gabriel said quietly. But first, I want to hear your version of what happened. Gregory straightened his tie, a gesture Gabriel recognized as a tell. The man was nervous despite his bluster. My son was minding his own business when your boy decided to mouth off about Milton's new shoes. Things escalated. Boys will be boys. Milton nodded eagerly. He said Dad only bought them because he was compensating for something. I had to defend our family honor. Gabriel looked down at the 13-year-old, seeing the careful coaching behind the words. This wasn't a child speaking. This was a parrot repeating lines he'd been fed. And that required holding him down while an adult broke his arm? Now wait just a minute, Gregory started. No, you wait. Gabriel's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. A grown man assaulted my 13-year-old son. That's not boys being boys. That's attempted murder. Gregory laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Attempted murder? You watch too many movies. I barely touched the little punk. Maybe next time he'll think twice before disrespecting his betters. The words hung in the air between them. Gabriel studied Gregory's face, memorizing every detail, the slight scar above his left eyebrow, the way his nostrils flared when he was angry, the expensive dental work that gave his smile a predatory quality. His betters, Gabriel repeated softly. Interesting choice of words. Look, Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker, I understand you're upset. Milton's mother and I are prepared to be generous. We'll cover the medical bills, of course. Perhaps a little extra for your trouble. What do you say we call it even? Gabriel smiled for the first time since arriving at the hospital. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Even. You think money makes us even. Money makes everything even, Mr. Becker. That's how the world works. Your world, Gabriel said. Not mine. Gregory's confidence wavered slightly. There was something in Gabriel's tone, something that suggested dangerous depths beneath the surface. What do you do for a living, Mr. Becker? I solve problems, Gabriel replied. Usually for people who can't solve them themselves. I see. Gregory straightened his cufflinks, another nervous gesture. Well, I'm sure we can work something out. I know people, Mr. Becker. Judges, police commissioners, district attorneys. Your son got hurt. Yes, but pressing charges would be unwise. Gabriel nodded thoughtfully. You know people. Important people. People who owe you favors. Exactly. But here's the thing, Gregory. Gabriel stepped closer, close enough that Gregory could smell the lingering scent of cordite and fear sweat from the interrogation room. I am people. Gregory blinked, not understanding. The kind of people your important friends call when they need problems to disappear permanently. The kind of people who make house calls at 3 a.m. and leave no trace behind. Gabriel's smile widened. The kind of people you don't want to meet in a dark alley. For the first time, real fear flickered across Gregory's face. He grabbed Milton's shoulder. We're leaving. If you come near my family again, I'll have you arrested. No, Gabriel said conversationally. You won't. The Darlings fled down the hallway. Gabriel watched them go, already formulating plans. Behind him, Kelly appeared. That was him. That was him. What are you going to do? Gabriel turned to face his wife, and she saw something in his expression that made her step back. In 12 years of marriage, she'd never seen Gabriel look at another human being the way he was looking toward the elevator where the Darlings had disappeared. I'm going to teach them about place, he said. Chapter 3. Intelligence Gathering. The Becker family home was modest by any standard, a 3-bedroom ranch in a working-class neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's business. Gabriel's study was the only room that hinted at his real profession, a gun safe disguised as a bookshelf, a computer with military-grade encryption, and filing cabinets that contained information on some very dangerous people. While Kelly stayed with Sam at the hospital, Gabriel sat at his desk reviewing the intelligence Walter had compiled on the Darling family. The file was comprehensive, 12 hours of work that would have taken most people 12 weeks. Gregory Darling, 47, CEO of Darling Industries, a mid-level defense contracting firm specializing in security solutions for third-world governments. Net worth approximately $50 million, most of it inherited from his father's steel fortune. Married to Lydia Darling, former Miss Georgia, turned socialite. One son, Milton, age 13. Gabriel's eyebrows rose as he read deeper. Darling Industries had contracts with some interesting organizations, mercenary groups operating in Southeast Asia, arms dealers in the former Soviet states, and several companies that existed only on paper. Gregory wasn't just a rich bully, he was dirty. But there was more. Public records showed that Gregory had been investigated twice for suspected money laundering, but both cases had been quietly dropped. His company employed several former military personnel with questionable discharges, and their client list read like a who's who of international war criminals. Gabriel smiled grimly. Gregory Darling thought he was untouchable because he had judges and police commissioners in his pocket. But Gabriel operated in a world where those connections meant nothing, where problems were solved with bullets and bodies disappeared into unmarked graves. His encrypted phone buzzed. "Walter, tell me you found something good," Gabriel said. "Better than good. Your boy Gregory has been a very bad man. I'm sending you the classified files now." Gabriel's computer chimed as the files arrived. What he read made his blood run cold, then boiling hot. Darling Industries wasn't just laundering money. They were trafficking weapons to terrorist organizations, selling defective body armor to American soldiers, and skimming millions from humanitarian aid programs. But the worst revelation was buried in a CIA memorandum from 2019. Gregory Darling had personally arranged the sale of surface-to-air missiles to a rebel group in Syria. Those missiles had been used to shoot down a medical transport helicopter, killing 4 doctors and 6 wounded civilians. "This bastard has American blood on his hands," Gabriel said. "Gets better," Walter replied. "Remember that State Department contact Victor mentioned? Guess who's been feeding classified information to arms dealers for the past 3 years?" Gabriel's grip tightened on the phone. "Gregory. Bingo. He's not just a rich asshole, Gabriel. He's a traitor. And thanks to his connections, he's been untouchable. Until now." Gabriel stood and walked to his window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood where children played in their yards without fear. "I need a team. Already assembled. Lee Robinson and Joel Richards are en route. They'll be at the safe house by midnight." Gabriel knew both men, former Delta Force operators who'd worked with him on Black Ops missions in Afghanistan and Iraq. They were lethal, loyal, and utterly ruthless when the situation called for it. More importantly, they understood that some enemies didn't deserve mercy. "What about the boy?" Walter asked. Gabriel's expression hardened. "Milton Darling participated in the assault on my son. He held Sam down while his father broke his arm. In my book, that makes him complicit. He's 13, Gabriel. So is Sam. The only difference is Sam's the one in the hospital bed." There was silence on the line. Finally, Walter spoke. "This isn't just about revenge, is it? This is about justice." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Gabriel replied. Gregory Darling has spent his entire life believing that money and connections put him above the law. He's hurt American soldiers, killed innocent doctors, and now he's put his hands on my son. It's time someone taught him that there's a law higher than the one he's been buying. What do you need? Everything. Financial records, security protocols for his home and office, personnel files on his security team, travel schedules, phone records, everything. And Walter? I want to know about every dirty deal he's ever made. When I'm done with him, Gregory Darling is going to beg me to put a bullet in his head." Gabriel hung up and returned to his computer, pulling up architectural plans for the Darling estate. The house was a fortress, 20-acre compound, armed security, motion detectors, and enough cameras to film a movie. Most people would see it as impregnable. Gabriel saw it as a prison. His phone buzzed with a text from Kelly. "Sam's asking for you. Doctors say he can come home tomorrow." Gabriel typed back, "On my way. Tell him Daddy's going to fix everything." As he drove back to the hospital, Gabriel's mind was already working through the plan. Gregory Darling thought he was untouchable because he operated in a world of lawyers and politicians. But Gabriel was about to introduce him to a different world, one where justice came from the barrel of a gun and consequences couldn't be bought with. By the time he reached the hospital, Gabriel's transformation was complete. He was no longer just an angry father seeking revenge. He was a weapon of war, pointed at a target who had made the fatal mistake of hurting the one thing Gabriel loved most. The war for Sam Becker's honor was about to begin. Chapter 4: Recruitment. The safe house was a nondescript warehouse in the industrial district, the kind of place that existed on no official records and asked no questions about the men who came and went at all hours. Gabriel arrived at midnight to find Lee Robinson and Joel Richards waiting in the main room, their gear already unpacked and weapons cleaned. Lee was built like a boxer, compact, scarred, with the kind of dead eyes that came from seeing too much combat. Joel was taller, leaner, with prematurely gray hair and hands that never stopped moving. Both men had served with Gabriel in the worst hellholes the world had to offer, and both had reasons to hate men like Gregory Darling. "Heard someone hurt your boy," Lee said without preamble. He'd lost his own son in a drunk driving accident caused by a rich kid who'd bought his way out of prison time. "What do you need?" Gabriel spread the files across the table. "Intelligence says Gregory Darling has been selling weapons to terrorists. Some of those weapons killed Americans. I want him to face justice." Joel studied the photographs of the Darling compound. "This isn't about justice, Gabriel. This is about revenge. And you know what? I'm fine with that. Rich bastards like this think they can buy their way out of anything. Sometimes the only language they understand is violence." "There's something else," Gabriel said. He told them about Sam, about the assault, about Gregory's arrogant assumption that money would make everything disappear. By the time he finished, both men were ready for war. Lee cracked his knuckles. "What's the plan?" Gabriel activated a wall-mounted screen and began laying out the operation. Phase 1: Isolation. Gregory's power comes from his connections, so we're going to systematically destroy them. Joel, you're going to hack his communication systems and intercept his calls. I want to know everyone he talks to and everything he says." Joel nodded. Electronic warfare was his specialty. "Lee, you're going to handle the physical surveillance. I want to know Gregory's routine down to the minute. When he eats, when he sleeps, when he goes to the bathroom. I want to know which of his bodyguards are professionals and which ones are just for show." Phase 2, Lee asked. Psychological warfare. We're going to make Gregory paranoid, isolated, and desperate. His business associates are going to start having accidents. His political connections are going to suddenly find themselves under investigation. His comfortable little world is going to crumble around him. And Phase 3, Joel asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Phase 3 is Judgment Day. Gregory Darling is going to learn that there are consequences for his actions. All of them. Gabriel outlined the specific operations, how they would infiltrate Gregory's security network, how they would turn his allies against him, how they would systematically dismantle his empire. It was a complex plan that would take weeks to execute, but Gabriel was patient. He'd waited 15 years to get his hands on Viktor Kozlov. He could wait as long as necessary to destroy Gregory Darling. "One more thing," Gabriel said as the briefing concluded. "The boy, Milton, he's 13, but he participated in the assault on my son. I'm not going to hurt a child, but I want him to understand that actions have consequences. Fear might be the only thing that keeps him from growing up to be exactly like his father." Lee and Joel exchanged glances. They both had children, and they both understood Gabriel's position. In a perfect world, Milton Darling would learn right from wrong through guidance and education. But the world wasn't perfect, and sometimes fear was the only teacher that worked. When do we start? Joel asked. Tonight, Gabriel replied. Joel, I want you to take down their internet first. Make it look like a random outage, but I want Gregory cut off in the outside world. Lee, you're going to plant surveillance equipment in their vehicles. I want to hear every conversation. What about you? Lee asked. Gabriel's smile was cold as winter steel. I'm going to pay a visit to some of Gregory's business associates. It's time they learned that doing business with Gregory Darling is hazardous to their health. The three men spent the next hour reviewing floor plans, security protocols, and contingency plans. They worked with the efficiency of soldiers who'd operated together for years, each man knowing exactly what the others were thinking without needing to speak. As dawn approached, Gabriel felt the familiar calm that came before battle. For the first time since receiving the call about Sam, he was in control of the situation. Gregory Darling had declared war on the Becker family the moment he laid hands on Sam. He just didn't know it yet, but he would learn. Soon, Gregory Darling would discover that Gabriel Becker was the kind of enemy nightmares were made of. Chapter 5. The Hunt Begins. Gregory Darling's Tuesday began with his usual routine. Coffee at 7 a.m., Wall Street Journal at 7:15, conference call with overseas clients at 8. By 8:30, his comfortable world was falling apart. Mr. Darling, there's a problem with the Jakarta shipment, his assistant Irene Stewart said, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. The authorities seized the entire cargo. They're saying it contained classified American military technology. Gregory spilled coffee down his silk tie. That's impossible. We sent agricultural equipment. Sir, the news is saying it was surface-to-air missiles. The State Department is launching an investigation. Gregory's blood turned to ice. The Jakarta shipment had indeed contained missiles. Russia made a gloss that he'd purchased through intermediaries and resold to Indonesian rebels. The agricultural equipment story was cover, and someone had blown it. His secure phone rang. Viktor Kozlov's voice was barely recognizable, distorted by pain and rage. You promised me protection, Viktor growled. You said your American contacts would keep investigations away from my operation. Viktor, calm down. What happened? What happened is that someone broke every bone in my right hand and then left me tied to a chair for 8 hours. What happened is that my warehouse in Montenegro was raided by Interpol. What happened is that someone is systematically destroying everyone connected to our business. Gregory's mouth went dry. Who? I don't know, but they knew everything. Bank accounts, shipping schedules, contact lists, everything. Someone with serious intelligence resources is hunting us. The line went dead. Gregory stood frozen in his office, mind racing through possibilities. The CIA? FBI? Some rival arms dealer? He'd paid off enough officials to be warned about any major investigation. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Darling, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says it's about your son, Milton. Gregory frowned. Send him in. The man who entered his office was unremarkable, medium height, brown hair, wearing an inexpensive suit. But Gregory's predatory instincts recognized something dangerous in the man's calm demeanor. Mr. Darling, my name is Joel Richards. I work for Child Protective Services. The man placed a manila folder on Gregory's desk. We've received some disturbing reports about your son's behavior. What kind of reports? Allegations that Milton has been physically assaulting other children with your knowledge and encouragement. Specifically, that you participated in an assault on a 13-year-old boy named Sam Becker. Gregory's temper flared. That's ridiculous. I barely touched that little punk, and only after he started a fight with my son. Joel made a note on his pad. So you admit to physically restraining a minor child who was not threatening you in any way? The words were a trap, and Gregory realized it too late. I want my lawyer. Of course. But, Mr. Darling, I have to inform you that we're opening a formal investigation into Milton's home environment. There will be interviews with his teachers, his classmates, and family friends. If we determine that Milton is being raised in an environment that encourages violence, we'll have no choice but to recommend removal from your custody. Gregory's face went white. You can't take my son. We can, and we will if necessary. Children learn by example, Mr. Darling. If you're teaching Milton that violence is an acceptable solution to problems, then you're failing in your fundamental duty as a parent. Joel stood to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, one more thing. I'd be very careful about any future contact with the Becker family. We'll be watching. Alone in his office, Gregory's hands shook as he reached for his phone. First, his business empire was under attack, and now someone was threatening to take his son. The timing couldn't be coincidental. His call went to District Attorney Todd Carey, one of several officials Gregory kept on his payroll. Todd, I need a favor. There's a Child Protective Services investigator named Joel Richards who needs to be reassigned. Far away. Gregory, I can't just. You can and you will. I've contributed significantly to your campaign fund, and I expect results. There was a long pause. Gregory, maybe you should lay low for a while. Word is coming down from Washington about some kind of investigation into defense contractors. Your name came up. Gregory slammed down the phone. Everything was unraveling at once, and he was starting to understand that this wasn't coincidence. Someone was orchestrating a campaign against him, someone with resources and connections that rivaled his own. His secure line rang again. This time it was his head of security, a former Marine named Angelo Starr. Mr. Darling, we have a problem. Someone's been watching the house. Professional surveillance, not some private investigator with a camera. I'm talking military-grade equipment and techniques. Can you identify them? Not yet, but whoever's running this operation knows what they're doing. They've been invisible for weeks, maybe months. The only reason I spotted them is because they wanted me to. Gregory's blood ran cold. Someone had been watching his family for months, learning their routines, identifying vulnerabilities. Double the security around Milton. I want armed guards with him at all times. Already done. But boss, if these people are as professional as I think they are, more guards might not be enough. Maybe you should consider sending Mrs. Darling and Milton somewhere safe until this blows over. Gregory ended the call and walked to his office window, looking down at the city street 44s below. Somewhere down there, an enemy was hunting him. Someone who knew about his illegal arms deals, his political connections, his vulnerabilities. Someone who was patient enough to plan a campaign of destruction and skilled enough to execute it. For the first time in his adult life, Gregory Darling was afraid. In the warehouse across the city, Gabriel Becker smiled as he listened to the intercepted phone calls. The hunt had begun, and the prey was already panicking. Chapter 6, Pressure Points. By the end of the week, Gregory Darling's empire was hemorrhaging from a dozen wounds. His primary bank had frozen his accounts, pending an investigation into suspicious transactions. 3 of his top clients had canceled major contracts after receiving anonymous tips about his weapons trafficking. The IRS had launched a comprehensive audit of Darling Industries, and the FBI was asking uncomfortable questions about his business dealings in Southeast Asia. But the personal attacks were worse than the business ones. Milton's private school had expelled him after a mysterious video surfaced showing him bullying younger students. Lydia Darling's charity board had asked for her resignation following allegations about misappropriated funds. Their country club membership had been revoked due to behavioral concerns. Gregory paced his home office like a caged animal, paranoia eating at him like acid. Every phone call might be monitored. Every visitor might be an enemy agent. Every shadow might hide an assassin. His secure phone rang. Walter Knight's voice was calm, professional, and utterly terrifying. Mr. Darling, we need to talk. Who is this? Someone who knows about the surface-to-air missiles you sold to Syrian rebels in 2019. The ones that killed Dr. Sarah Martinez and her medical team. Gregory's legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair, mind reeling. Only 3 people had known about that specific transaction, and 2 of them were dead. What do you want? Justice. But we're reasonable men, Mr. Darling. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Meet me tonight. Riverside Park, East Pavilion, midnight. Come alone. I'm not stupid enough to. Mr. Darling, let me explain your situation. As of this morning, you have no political allies, no judicial protection, and no financial resources. Your security team has been infiltrated by our people. Your business is collapsing, your family is in disgrace, and the only reason you're not in federal prison is because we haven't finished with you yet. The line went dead. Gregory stared at the phone, understanding with crystal clarity that he was facing an enemy unlike any he'd encountered before. This wasn't some government investigation that could be derailed with bribes and influence. This was personal, professional, and absolutely relentless. At midnight, Gregory sat alone in the park pavilion, his bodyguard Angelo star-posted 50 yards away. The night was quiet except for the sound of crickets and distant traffic. Gabriel Becker emerged from the shadows like a ghost. "Thank you for coming," Gabriel said, sitting across from Gregory on the opposite bench. "We have a lot to discuss." Gregory studied the man who'd been hunting him for weeks. Gabriel looked unremarkable, the kind of person you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But his eyes were winter cold, and Gregory could sense violence coiled beneath the surface like a sleeping serpent. "You're Sam Becker's father." Among other things, Gabriel placed a manila folder on the picnic table between them. "That contains evidence of every crime you've committed in the past 10 years. Arms trafficking, money laundering, treason, murder. Any one of these charges would put you in federal prison for life." Gregory's mouth was desert dry. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something, Gregory. You hurt my son because you thought there would be no consequences. You believed that your money and connections made you untouchable. You were wrong." Gabriel opened the folder, revealing photographs that made Gregory's blood freeze. Pictures of his secret meetings with arms dealers. Documents showing his bank transactions. Video footage of him personally directing weapon shipments to terrorist organizations. "Every federal agency in the country is looking for evidence like this," Gabriel continued. "The CIA wants you for treason. The FBI wants you for arms trafficking. The DEA wants you for money laundering. And the families of the American soldiers who died because of your defective body armor want you for murder. You can't prove. I don't have to prove anything. The evidence speaks for itself." Gabriel leaned forward. "But here's what I find most interesting, Gregory. In all of our surveillance, in all of our investigation, do you know what we never saw? We never saw you show one moment of remorse for what you did to my son. Even now, faced with the destruction of everything you've built, you're not sorry. You're just afraid." Gregory's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to confess. Every crime, every victim, every dollar of blood money. I want you to surrender yourself to federal authorities and plead guilty to all charges. And I want you to personally apologize to my son for what you did to him. And if I refuse?" Gabriel's smile was colder than winter starlight. "Then tomorrow morning, copies of this evidence go to every major news network in the country. By noon, you'll be the most wanted man in America. Your son will grow up knowing his father was a traitor who sold weapons to terrorists. Your wife will spend the rest of her life in witness protection, assuming she survives the contract killings your former business partners will inevitably order." Gregory felt his world collapse around him. There was no escape, no way out, no cavalry coming to his rescue. "You've destroyed everything." "No, Gregory. You destroyed everything the moment you decided that money and power gave you the right to hurt innocent people. I just made sure you faced the consequences." Gabriel stood to leave, then paused. "You have 24 hours to make your decision. Confession and prison, or public exposure and a very unpleasant death. Choose wisely." As Gabriel disappeared back into the shadows, Gregory sat alone in the pavilion, finally understanding the lesson he'd been too arrogant to learn. Everyone, no matter how rich or powerful, eventually meets someone more dangerous than they are. For Gregory Darling, that someone was a father seeking justice for his son. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. Gabriel returned home at 1 a.m. to find Kelly waiting up for him, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. Sam was asleep upstairs, his arms still in a cast, but his spirit slowly healing. "How did it go?" she asked. "Gregory Darling now understands the position he's in," Gabriel replied. "By tomorrow night, this will be over." Kelly studied her husband's face. After 12 years of marriage, she could read his moods better than anyone. "You're not just doing this for Sam anymore, are you?" Gabriel poured himself a glass of bourbon and sat beside his wife. "When I was investigating Gregory, I found something. That bastard sold surface-to-air missiles to Syrian rebels. Those missiles shot down a medical helicopter, killing 4 doctors and 6 wounded civilians. One of those doctors was Dr. Sarah Martinez. Kelly's face went white. Sarah Martinez had been Gabriel's field medic in Afghanistan, a woman who'd saved Gabriel's life twice and the lives of dozens of other soldiers. She'd left the army to work for Doctors Without Borders, treating civilians in war zones. Sarah's dead because Gregory Darling wanted to make money selling weapons to terrorists, Gabriel continued. Sam getting hurt was personal, but Sarah's death? That's justice waiting to be served. The next morning brought chaos to the Darling household. Gregory had spent the night drinking and pacing, trying to find some way out of the trap that had been set for him. Lydia had demanded answers about the frozen bank accounts and canceled contracts. Milton had rage about his expulsion from school and the loss of his social status. At 10 a.m., Gregory's secure phone rang. Joel Richards' voice was calm, but implacable. "Have you made your decision, Mr. Darling? I need more time. Time is a luxury you no longer possess. As we speak, federal agents are reviewing the evidence we've provided. They're particularly interested in the Syrian missile transaction and its connection to Dr. Martinez's death." Gregory's hands shook. "You don't understand. If I confess, my business partners will kill me. These aren't the kind of people who accept failure gracefully. Then you should have thought of that before you went into business with terrorists and war criminals. You have until 6 p.m. to turn yourself into federal authorities. After that, the decision will be taken out of your hands." The line went dead. Gregory stared at the phone, finally understanding that he had no good choices left. Confession meant life in prison and a target on his back. Refusal meant public disgrace, the destruction of his family, and probable assassination by his former business partners. At 3 p.m., Gregory made his choice. FBI Special Agent Fred Escobar was conducting a routine briefing when his secure line rang. The voice on the other end was cultured, educated, and terrified. "My name is Gregory Darling. I want to turn myself in." 2 hours later, Gregory sat in an FBI interrogation room, his lawyer beside him and a court reporter taking down every word. Across the table, Agent Escobar and federal prosecutor Matthew Courtney listened with growing amazement as Gregory confessed to crimes they hadn't even suspected. Arms trafficking to 17 different terrorist organizations. Money laundering through 6 countries. The systematic murder of business rivals and whistleblowers. The sale of defective body armor to American troops. The Syrian missile transaction that had killed Dr. Martinez and her team. "Why are you confessing to all of this?" Agent Escobar asked. Gregory's laugh was bitter and broken. "Because someone proved to me that there are consequences for my actions. Someone who couldn't be bought, threatened, or killed. Someone who cared more about justice than money." "Who?" Gregory shook his head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I finally understand something I should have learned years ago. Everyone pays for their sins eventually. Mine just came due all at once." By 6 p.m., Gregory Darling was in federal custody. His confession splashed across every news network in the country. The man who'd thought himself untouchable was facing multiple life sentences for treason, arms trafficking, and accessory to murder. But Gabriel wasn't finished yet. At 8 p.m., he appeared at the Darling estate, walking past the FBI agents who were executing search warrants and seizing evidence. He found Milton Darling in the living room, his face pale with shock and fear. "Hello, Milton," Gabriel said quietly. The 13-year-old looked up with his father's eyes, but without his father's arrogance. The events of the past week had stripped away his sense of invincibility. "My dad's in jail because of you," Milton said. "Your dad's in jail because he chose to sell weapons to terrorists and hurt innocent people," Gabriel replied. "Including my son." Milton's composure cracked. "I didn't know. When Dad told me to hold Sam down, I thought it was just normal stuff. Like when rich kids fight poor kids. I didn't know Dad was a criminal." Gabriel sat down across from the boy, seeing not an enemy, but a child who'd been raised by a monster. "Milton, your father taught you that violence was acceptable, that people like my family deserve to be hurt because we had less money than you. Do you still believe that?" Milton shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry about Sam, about everything. I don't want to be like my father." Gabriel studied the boy's face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. All he saw was genuine remorse and terror, not at being caught, but at the realization of what he'd become. Then don't be, Gabriel said simply. You have a choice, Milton. You can learn from your father's mistakes, or you can repeat them. But if you ever hurt another innocent person, if you ever think that money gives you the right to harm others, you'll answer to me. Do you understand? Milton nodded frantically. Yes, sir. I understand. Gabriel stood to leave. Take care of your mother, Milton. She's going to need you to be the man your father never was. As Gabriel walked out of the Darling estate, he felt the weight of vengeance lifting from his shoulders. Gregory Darling would spend the rest of his life in federal prison, his empire destroyed, his reputation in ruins. Justice for Sam, for Dr. Martinez, and for all the other victims of Gregory's greed had finally been served. The war was over. Gabriel Becker had won. Chapter 8. Consequences. 6 months later, Gabriel sat in the visiting room of Federal Correctional Institution Coleman, watching Gregory Darling shuffle through the door in orange prison scrubs and shackles. The man who'd once been worth $50 million and commanded respect through fear now looked like what he'd always been beneath the expensive suits and arrogant bluster. A broken, pathetic bully who'd finally met someone stronger than himself. Gregory's hair had gone completely gray. His face was gaunt from poor prison food, and his hands bore the scars of multiple accidents that had befallen him during his first few months in federal custody. Arms dealers and terrorists didn't appreciate turncoats, and even in maximum security, Gregory's former business partners had ways of reaching him. Hello, Gregory, Gabriel said calmly. Gregory sat down heavily, his eyes avoiding Gabriel's steady gaze. Why are you here? I wanted to see how you were adjusting to your new circumstances. I understand you've made some interesting friends. Viktor Kozlov's people, some Syrian rebels, a few arms dealers from Montenegro. They're all very eager to express their gratitude for your cooperation with federal authorities. Gregory's face went pale. 3 weeks earlier, someone had slipped crushed glass into his food. 2 weeks before that, he'd been stabbed with a sharpened spoon in the shower. The attacks would continue until someone succeeded in killing him or until he died of natural causes 50 years from now. You destroyed my life, Gregory said quietly. No, Gabriel replied. You destroyed your life. You destroyed it the moment you decided that money gave you the right to hurt innocent people. You destroyed it when you sold weapons to terrorists. You destroyed it when you put your hands on my 13-year-old son. Gabriel leaned forward. I simply made sure you faced the consequences of your choices. What about Milton? What about my family? Milton is doing well, actually. He's been seeing a therapist to deal with the trauma of learning that his father was a monster. His grades have improved dramatically, and he started volunteering at a children's hospital. Your wife has moved to Portland and changed her name. She's working as a nurse and seems to be building a new life. Gabriel smiled slightly. Your family is better off without you, Gregory. They're learning to be decent human beings instead of entitled parasites living off blood money. Gregory's composure finally cracked completely. I'm going to die in here. Every day, I wake up wondering if today is the day someone finally kills me. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't trust anyone. This is hell. Good, Gabriel said without sympathy. Dr. Sarah Martinez died alone and afraid when your missiles shot down her helicopter. The soldiers who died, wearing your defective body armor, suffered in ways you can't imagine. The children who were killed by the weapons you trafficked never got to grow up and build lives of their own. Gabriel stood to leave. You're experiencing a fraction of the fear and pain you inflicted on others. Consider it an education in empathy. Wait, Gregory called out desperately. What about Sam? How is he? Gabriel paused at the door. Sam is thriving. His arm healed perfectly, and he's become quite interested in martial arts. He's also started a club at his school for kids who've been bullied. He wants to teach them that they don't have to be victims. Gabriel's smile was cold as winter steel. My son learned something valuable from his encounter with you, Gregory. He learned that monsters like you exist in the world, but he also learned that good people will always stand up to monsters. You made him stronger. As Gabriel walked out of the prison, he felt a profound sense of closure. Gregory Darling would spend the rest of his life paying for his crimes, living in constant fear, stripped of everything that had once made him feel powerful. It was a fitting end for a man who'd built his empire on the suffering of others. Outside in the parking lot, Gabriel's phone buzzed with a text from Kelly. "Sam's soccer game starts in an hour. Don't be late." Gabriel smiled and headed for his car. His son was waiting, healthy and happy, and ready to build a life free from the shadow of Gregory Darling's cruelty. The future belonged to the next generation, and Gabriel had made sure that generation would inherit a world with one less monster in it. Justice had been served. The Becker family could finally move forward. Chapter 9: New Beginnings. 1 year later, Gabriel stood in the bleachers of Riverside Middle School's gymnasium, watching Sam compete in his first martial arts tournament. The cast had come off months ago, leaving only a thin scar on his arm as a reminder of that terrible day. But rather than being broken by the experience, Sam had grown stronger, physically, emotionally, and morally. "Dad, look," Sam called out, grinning as he demonstrated a perfect defensive sequence. His instructor, a former Marine named Clyde Long, nodded approvingly. Sam had taken to martial arts with natural talent. But more importantly, he'd embraced the philosophy of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Kelly sat beside Gabriel, beaming with pride. "He's come so far," she said. "Sometimes I think about that day in the hospital, and I can't believe how much has changed." Gabriel watched his son bow respectfully to his opponent before beginning their sparring match. Sam had grown 3 inches in the past year, and his confidence had returned stronger than ever. But he'd also developed something Gregory Darling had never possessed: empathy for others and a sense of responsibility to use his strength wisely. "Mr. Becker?" A familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. Gabriel turned to see Milton Darling standing behind them, looking nervous but determined. The 13-year-old had grown as well, but his transformation was more profound than physical. Gone was the arrogant sneer and entitled attitude. In their place was a young man who carried himself with quiet dignity. "Hello, Milton," Gabriel said carefully. "What are you doing here?" "I came to watch Sam compete," Milton said. "And I wanted to talk to you. To all of you." Kelly tensed slightly, but Gabriel placed a calming hand on her arm. "What's on your mind?" Milton took a deep breath. "I've been in therapy for a year now, working through what happened and what my father taught me. I understand now that what we did to Sam was wrong. Not just wrong, evil. And I wanted to apologize." He turned to face both Gabriel and Kelly, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I held Sam down while my father hurt him. I participated in something horrible because I thought it made me powerful. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I know saying sorry doesn't undo what happened, but I needed you to know that I'm not that person anymore." Gabriel studied the boy's face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. He found none. This was genuine remorse, the kind that came from true understanding of the harm one had caused. "What are you doing now, Milton?" Gabriel asked. "I'm living with my mom in Portland. She got me into a good school, and I'm seeing a therapist twice a week. I also volunteer at a children's hospital, reading to kids who are scared or lonely. My therapist says helping others is the best way to make amends for past mistakes." Milton's voice grew stronger as he continued. "I'm also learning martial arts, like Sam. Not to hurt people, but to protect them. My instructor says that true strength comes from defending those who need help, not from causing pain." Down on the mat, Sam executed a flawless takedown, scoring points while being careful not to injure his opponent. Gabriel felt a surge of pride, watching his son demonstrate the kind of controlled strength and compassion that Gregory Darling had never understood. "Sam doesn't know you're here, does he?" Gabriel asked. Milton shook his head. "I wasn't sure if I should talk to him. I didn't want to upset him or bring back bad memories. But I wanted him to know that I'm sorry, and that what happened to him made me want to be a better person." Gabriel considered for a moment, then made his decision. "Sam," he called out, "come here for a minute." Sam jogged over, still breathing hard from his match. When he saw Milton, his expression grew wary, but not fearful. The boy who had once been a victim had learned to be cautious without being controlled by fear. "Hello, Sam," Milton said quietly. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry for what happened. What my father and I did to you is wrong. And I've spent the past year trying to understand how I could have been part of something so horrible. Sam studied Milton with the same assessing gaze his father had taught him. Are you really sorry? Or are you just saying that because you have to? I'm really sorry, Milton replied. I know I can't undo what happened, but I promise you that I'll never hurt an innocent person again. I want to be someone who protects people instead of hurting them. Sam nodded slowly. My dad taught me that people can change if they really want to. But he also taught me that actions matter more than words. If you really want to be different, you have to prove it through what you do, not what you say. I understand, Milton said. I'm working on proving it every day. Gabriel watched the interaction with amazement. Both boys had been shaped by the events of that terrible day, but instead of being broken by the experience, they'd both grown stronger and wiser. Sam had learned to stand up for himself and others, while Milton had learned that true strength came from protecting the innocent rather than preying on them. Milton, Gabriel said, there's something I want you to understand. What happened between our families was the result of choices your father made. You were a child following his example, but you're not a child anymore. The man you become from this point forward is entirely up to you. Milton straightened his shoulders. I want to be someone you could be proud of, Mr. Becker. Someone who would make Sam feel safer, not more afraid. Gabriel looked at the young man standing before him, no longer the spoiled, entitled bully who'd helped assault his son, but a person genuinely committed to redemption. It was more than Gregory Darling had ever achieved, even facing life in prison. Then be that person, Gabriel said simply. Every day, in every choice you make, be someone who protects rather than destroys. As Milton walked away to catch his bus back to Portland, Gabriel felt something he hadn't expected: hope. The cycle of violence and revenge could be broken. Children could learn from the mistakes of their parents and choose a different path. Sam returned to his tournament, going on to win his division through skill, determination, and the kind of controlled strength that came from inner confidence rather than a need to dominate others. As Gabriel and Kelly cheered from the bleachers, Gabriel reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Gregory Darling was serving multiple life sentences in federal prison, his empire destroyed, his legacy one of shame and betrayal. But his son had chosen a different path, one that honored the victims of Gregory's crimes by dedicating himself to protecting others. Justice had been served, but more importantly, the next generation had learned a better way. As the Becker family drove home that evening, Sam chattering excitedly about his tournament victory, Gabriel felt a profound sense of peace. The war that had begun with a phone call about his injured son was finally over. Not because his enemies had been destroyed, but because his son, and even his former enemy, had chosen to build something better from the wreckage of that terrible day. Sometimes, Gabriel realized, the greatest victory wasn't crushing your enemies. It was showing them a better way to live. The future belonged to Sam and Milton and all the children who would learn from their example. It was a future where strength meant protection rather than predation, where power meant responsibility rather than privilege, and where justice meant redemption rather than just revenge. Gabriel Becker had taught his son that there were consequences for evil actions, but Sam had taught his father that there were also possibilities for good ones. In the end, that was the most important lesson of all.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.